right, sounds good. Thank you. So I'm actually super excited about, this is my first time attending this conference, so I'll just say that right up front. And my AV guys in the back, they have my slides ready. And here we go. So today, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about, so it's sort of interesting to follow the speaker that talked about sort of the memory and the brain and neuroscience and experience, because my background before I got fully into academia was really working in the neuroscience units as a clinical director. So really sort of appreciate much of what he said, and I think some of that actually is going to apply to what I'm going to talk about today. So really I'm going to share with you a story. This is what our team did to sort of recreate the Everest experience using virtual production stage. So I started out as a leader and as a simulationist working in healthcare simulation. And one of the things that I've always done, besides working with mannequins, is really like to create these simulation experiences that people can engage in, particularly around crisis situations. And so we've recreated the Everest story in a few different ways. We've done these sort of whole room scale events where we create a Hillary step and have people climb and do all that stuff. I've also done it in VR. I've had our students climb Everest in VR. And then I've had them engage in an online experience where they work as a team to make decisions about summiting. So we've done a lot of different things, and all of our students and learners, they just loved the experience. So a new challenge came up, and we were looking at trying to build one of those massive open online courses, and we were really excited about being able to do that in a way to push that out to global learners. And because our Everest simulation really taught a lot about team dynamics, non-technical skills, communication, leadership, we really wanted to think about, so how could we bring that into one of these massive open online courses, which, as you know, is sort of a single learner in their own space on a computer. And so how do we do something like that? Well, so I had to kind of go back to my foundational thinking around, extended reality and immersion and all the things that, if you were here for the last talk, you learned about, and that is trying to sort of create that memory, trying to create that experience that has enough fidelity that people really feel like they're on the mountain or they're faced with life and death challenges and they have to make good decisions. So to do that, we had a great team that put this together, and I'll tell you more about them. And our vision was to really sort of bring this Everest experience to life. And so we were able to do that using an XR stage or virtual production technology. So the course that we embedded it in is, as I said, it's a MOOC, it's a 3-series MOOC, and it's leadership for healthcare professionals. We know that our healthcare leaders on the front line, particularly our nursing leaders, make a huge difference in culture, make a huge difference in satisfaction. We know that nurses tend to leave their jobs within 18 months after graduation, in particular because the work is tough. And if they don't have supportive leadership, they are more likely to leave. And it's a huge cost. We spend sometimes up to 6 months onboarding those new nurses, particularly if they're working in the ER or the ICU. So how can we support leaders and give them some basic foundational skills? And so we created this 3-series course, and we wanted to focus it globally. And it's really meant for people who may not have the time or the funds or the ability to go and get a master's degree in healthcare leadership. So we brought them 3 courses. In our first course on healthcare leadership principles, we wanted to create a simulation experience because I believe in the power of simulation. Well, how can I do that if my friend Todd here is doing this course in his office on a computer? Well, the cool thing was in 2023 at the University of Michigan, we have something called the Center for Academic Innovation. And Jeremy Nelson, who is the Chief Technology Officer there, had been talking about virtual production stage. And he kept talking about these stages. I didn't know what he was talking about. And then he's like, well, The Mandalorian. And I'm like, okay, Jeremy, my kids are older. Like, I didn't go see The Mandalorian, so I had to go watch it. And so he said, there is this stage that we're going to build. And they did. They brought this to University of Michigan, and you can see it there on the side. And then 2023, when the center opened, and I got a chance to see the stage for the first time, and I got to stand on that in a Viking village, and I'm looking at the Diag and the Michigan, and I said right then and there, I go, we can do Everest. We can do this Everest experience on a virtual production stage. We can make this happen. So then when the opportunity to develop a MOOC course came about, I said, okay, great. I will put in all the time and the effort to do the MOOC course if I can get a virtual production stage of Everest. So it took a while to convince the powers that be. I think we had to negotiate around 6 months or so to get the funding, because it's a big lift, and the stage was new and folks were new. But we were really able to pull that together. And the cool thing is, as you know, with the virtual production technology. Now, granted, we don't have a Hollywood-level stage. You saw the picture of it. We don't have the ceiling. We only have the front and the walls and a little bit of the stage. But we made it work. And we got a company in Ann Arbor called Bivouac to supply some of the tents. Okay, this is academia. We're faculty. We don't have a lot of money, right? So I convinced my faculty friends and students to be actors. And so we learned about this whole stage, the LED, it's like, well, this isn't a green screen, it's not projected on, it's really there. So we learned a lot in the process. Probably one of the biggest things that we were challenged with was the whole storyboard. So I come from a simulation background, healthcare, and the production team, they're folks that are, really understand the production and understand this. And I'm trying to create this vision for them about what we're going to do, and the fact that it's going to be a branching case story. It isn't going to be this, kind of linear production. So we took quite a bit of time sort of pulling our storyboard together, and probably a good chunk of that time was just learning how to talk back and forth to each other about what we were trying to do. So I'm going to show you some videos just because again, this is the way I learn. I think that sort of seeing how this looks and works is probably the most helpful way to do it. So this is just a little bit of our, we call this sort of our behind the scenes trailer that we use. And if you haven't figured it out, that's me in the purple hat. But it just sort of gives you an idea of what our stage looked like. And so none of us are actors. So our faculty were nurses. We have a lot of different experiences. And the team was amazing in working with us and sort of really helping us understand how we need to do this, how we need to act in order to make this a successful, immersive experience. And we learned a lot about what goes into this type of a thing. I'm used to just straight 2D video or, doing things in front of a green screen. That's Tim, he's our media. He was so excited about this, he actually wrote himself a role in the story because he wanted to be an actor in it. And we're like, yeah, that works. Originally, we weren't quite sure how to frame this, and we actually ended up doing it through a first-person perspective. So I played Jamie, and I actually sort of take you through this Everest climb. This is Tim's big moment. So the story is, he's Chad, he's some, guy who's like, yeah, I'm gonna conquer this mountain and stuff. And so we wrote his story. He doesn't even make it past the Khumbu Ice Falls. He gets weirded out on the ladder. So he had a lot of fun.
That's a wrap.
So when I asked Tim and Chamilla, who, Chamilla is our XR stage guru, he's the one who, makes all the magic happen and coordinates everything, and Tim is our media specialist. He's our director, to just give me some quotes, tell me what you think. And, he really said that, what we did, he said, you just can't do it with 2D. This has been sort of a really big deal for the Center for Academic Innovation to have this and to get a lot of really good press on it. And again, he's not kidding. We started planning this. It took us about 6 months to get to test shooting, and then we did the shoot for all the scenes in 4 long days, but we made it happen. And thank God it was in winter, because we had to have a scene where I was outside with real snow and crampons and everything. No crampons on the virtual production stage. They barely let us have shoes on. And then there's Chamilla, who had a lot of fun with this. He was super excited about making wind. And so he had his little leaf blower, which actually worked out really well, and his little smoke machine, and all of that. So we did try to make it fun. He has really done an amazing job in really getting our whole stage kind of up and going. So I'm going to show you a scene. So the way this Everest works is we start at Camp 4. And so we have a lot of our character personas that have been built ahead of time. And so each of them sort of represents, I won't say a typical person on an Everest team, but we wanted to have personalities that created this tension. Again, the whole focus of this is communication, team dynamics, and team leadership. So we had to create backstories for all of our characters. And so we have characters that, we have our plastic surgeon, media influencer, who's gonna get to the top no matter what, who cares about anybody on the team. We have a new expedition leader who's trying to get his company up and going. We have a new Sherpa. We have some of our climbers who this is their dream. So creating those characters and making them come to life on the stage through our unfolding story really sort of helps set the viewer, the learner, up for really kind of understanding how leadership affects safety. And then we have a whole debriefing and reflection, and then they have to think about, so how do I take this, which is not healthcare related, and bring it back into the healthcare environment and use this. Late afternoon at Camp 4, the final I also staging got to point narrate a before
little.
the death zone, an altitude so extreme that life can't be sustained for long without supplemental oxygen. Getting here was a monumental challenge, especially with Pat's health posing a significant hurdle for the group's success. Tomorrow promises to pose the toughest test yet.
You did well to make it this far, Jamie, but tomorrow is going to be harder. Are you sure you're ready? It's not just about strength, it's about endurance and will. We've already lost 2.
We're a smaller team now. Every step counts. I just hope we're strong enough to make it.
I swear, if anyone else slows us down tomorrow, I'm going up alone. I didn't come this far to be held back.
That's probably the closest I'll ever come to being an actress. I got no money for it, but it was fun. So just some of the takeaways from this experience is we came with a vision. I had a vision. I had this idea. This is like, so when we talk about, I know in my introduction, I'm this XR innovator in residence. And it basically is something that I got tapped because I just love this stuff. And it's like, would you be somebody who would work with the Center for Academic Innovation? Would you help other faculty, kind of think about and use some of this technology? And it's my passion. This is the kind of thing that I really enjoy doing, is creating these types of experiences for others, things that are just really out of the box. When we started, I had to, make sure I kind of kept my ego in check and what I wanted, include others in that whole process. But we did. I came with a vision, and we really worked together as a team. where we started and where we ended up were a bit different. This whole first-person point of view, how they kind of created the scenes and everything. I really wasn't able to necessarily do that just by myself. I needed folks that were not in healthcare, but understood media, understood that whole process of what really brings this kind of a thing to life. What I like is using this type of technology to create videos that we can scale at large. This can be seen anywhere, anytime, phone, computer, but yet it brings a lot of those elements that create that more immersive experience, that create those memories. You know, we're hoping to really engage the brain in all of this and create some memories so that the healthcare leaders that go through this can then really reflect back and say, oh yeah, I really felt how difficult that was for our young team leader to deal with Lee, who basically was going to, at a later scene, you'll see, where he risks the safety of the entire team because he wants to go up to the mountain. They leave somebody behind who should have never been left alone. So they really make all sorts of bad decisions. And I think if anybody, you know, ever watches anything about Everest, that is not that unusual for people to get so wrapped up in it. And so how do you as a leader or team members really make sure you make better decisions? We face that in the healthcare side on a daily basis. You know, we know that 70% of all of our sentinel or major events that lead to errors, sometimes lead to loss of life, 70% of those have some sort of communication failure. And so by doing something like this, we're hoping to really help our future leaders understand this in a way that sort of creates a memory for them to do that. And so we thought virtual production would be the best way to go, and I think indeed it is. So I'm going to roll credits. Our team was, Tim actually submitted the nomination, so we are a bronze Telly Award winner, we just found out, which was really cool. So that was very exciting. And so I just want to roll credits for the team, and then I think we will actually have a few minutes for questions.
Camera rolling.
I'm speeding.
Thank you, Rob. Action. Maybe don't shake no, because it makes it look like she's a goner. And cut. Good job.
Yep, that's Shamila's leaf blower. Who's having fun.
Yeah, you're in, way in there.
And Ray actually 3D printed our oxygen masks. So people got really into it, really creative. It was just a really cool, fun experience. Oh yes, and then somebody had COVID. So when we went into day 4 filming, we were like mask on and off. I'm like, forget it. Yeah, so we had to bring in some new players to help run the show.
Are we happy?
Action.
That's a wrap.
So we've had some really good success with this, and we've rolled it out, and we've actually run it live with teams. And so now I have some additional funding to take what was sort of originally meant to kind of be a solo experience to turn it into more of a team-based experience that we'll be able to share out with others as well. It was a solo experience because it had to sit within that massive open online course, but it also works well to do that in person with small teams of people and really kind of get that team experience. So I have 4 minutes and 43 seconds for questions, if anybody has questions. Yep, just pop up to the mic.
How How will the video be used in a group setting?
Yeah, so what we've been playing around with a little bit is because there is about 6 or 7 video clips that highlight the whole journey and it has decision points. So how I've run this is I've put everybody in teams. I have asked them to make decisions as teams as to whether to go, stay, or whatever the decision is within the unfolding case story. And so then we show the video so they see what happens, and then we give them time to reflect and discuss and talk about what would they do if they were the leader, what kind of decisions would they make, and how would they manage the situation. We don't put them into character roles, although there are ways you could probably do that, and then we show the next one. And then we do a full debriefing, and then we really talk about what did you learn and how will you use that in your back home as a leader, like, you know, and embody those leader perspectives. What would you do to deal with some of the characters like Lee, who was going to put patient safety at jeopardy? It's a nice way to take healthcare leaders out of healthcare and put them in a situation so I can have multidisciplinary teams with physicians and nurses and others where, you know, likely most of them don't have mountain climbing experience. So they're all sort of on the same playing field when it comes to figuring this out. And our person who gets sick actually ends up with high-altitude pulmonary edema. So, you know, that is the one thing that they really do understand how critically that is. And they leave her behind with no one watching her. So, other questions? Or at least that's how the story goes, and they have to talk about that later. If they're doing it in teams, they may make a different decision, you know, how they would handle it. So, yes, you want to come to the mic? I know, but it's for the recording. It's for the good of the order.
Was it really cold in that studio?
You know, it actually was cold, which was good because when we were all bundled up, but I will tell you, honestly, I wore shorts and a T-shirt under my snow pants, boots, and jacket. Yeah, but it was pretty cool in there, which made it a little bit more comfortable to, you know, to be in all the gear. But the masks got really hot, and then one of our actors didn't realize that he needed to pop out the little sections so that he could breathe, the little circles. And, you know, when we got done filming, he's like, oh my God, it's so hard to breathe in that mask. And we looked and we're like, oh no, you got to take these out. Oops, we should have pulled them out ahead of time, but you know. All right, well, if there are no further questions, then I will say thank you very much.